Sparodriga se galma quebus, which is, what do you think you're doing, Uncle? I like Rhaenyra. I think she's. I'm surprised the council was so for it, because not that I'm against a woman being heir. I have no problem with it. I think Rhaenyra is very smart, and the lords threw a damn fit over Rhaenys, and it was the lords that chose Viserys. So, like, that's my big problem here. I have no problems with a woman being ruler. I was a big Daenerys fan. My problem is, you basically shit on Rhaenys, and then all of a sudden we're making up our own fucking rules? Like, where the fuck did that come from? It was the lords that decided to make Viserys king. Otherwise, he would have never been there. And now Viserys, I'm sorry, but what you say means very little. Because you weren't the one that was even supposed to rule. The lords put you in command. So you just... which we'll get into this later in the later episodes, because there is a very significant person that says you skipped all lines of tradition and law. Like, I'm sorry, but this is not the way it's supposed to go. I don't have a problem with it. I think Rhaenyra is phenomenal. But, like, you just basically said, fuck this whole law. I'm just going to make up my own shit, is what you decided. What are your thoughts on that?
I guess what I would say, there's a couple things that play into it for me. Maybe they wanted... That was the first time, I believe, in the Targaryen dynasty where there wasn't a true line of succession, talking about from Jaehaerys to Viserys, right? Mm-hmm. So maybe Viserys didn't want to seem... You know, how bad would that look if they can't decide their own succession twice, that they've got to call lords, and it's like, well, shit, like if we've got to decide it for you, maybe the Targaryens shouldn't be in charge, period. You know, yeah. So I don't, maybe that's
we'll make the Baratheons in charge. Let's go ahead and skip a few years.
Right? So I think that might be part of it, is Viserys doesn't want to seem weak, like they need the realm's help to make a decision of who should lead, because at that point they're like, well, if you can't decide, why the hell should you be in charge? Why should the Targaryens still do this thing? So maybe in his mind, because it was only his 10th year, right? It was his 9th year of his rule, but I think by the time the episode came to an end, it was probably somewhere near year 10, I think, is what we're going to talk about next week. But regardless, that's not that long, right? So 10 years to, you know, for having the Great Council pick from Jaehaerys to Viserys, the Great Council picking him 10 years ago, that's not a big gap, because remember, Jaehaerys, the old king, ruled for almost 60 years. Right, yeah. So that's a decent amount of time. So maybe that's why the time has, like, he doesn't want to have to the whole realm to do that all over again and make it seem that they can't get their shit together, the Targaryens. So that's definitely part of it. I also definitely think that if Daemon didn't get in his own way and fucking go to that pleasure house and toast to the death of Balon, he likely would have been named the heir. Honestly, I really think Viserys would have done it eventually, because he was his only friend at court. He was defending Daemon. You know, he wouldn't outwardly give all the support for him. He didn't appreciate what he did with the City Watch and making that big show or spectacle, because he ended up saying, you know, hey, if that happens again, you're gonna have to answer for that. You can't be doing that in the streets. You know, so I definitely think that, and we're also gonna see this too. There's a few times where Viserys, you know, ends up making amends with Daemon. I'm just going to say that. I'm not going to give any specifics on it, but, you know, I do think he really does love his brother Daemon. He was just really hurt by the situation, and so Daemon really screwed himself. That's what I really think happened. So I think in Viserys' I wouldn't say perfect world, because in his perfect world, him and Aemma would have had a son, and that would have been the new heir. But unfortunately, his wife is dead and his son died too, so it's no longer a perfect world. I guess what's left of the most ideal situations is that he's going to pass it on to Daemon, because he's a male heir and he seems like he you know, is what it is in terms of his temperament. He doesn't have the best temperament, but it makes the most sense. We don't want to throw the realm into a whole tizzy, because you know, they didn't want Rhaenys as queen, so why the heck would we go through that again? But then Daemon pissed him off, and he's like, you know what? Now we are going to go ahead and break tradition. Rhaenyra is going to be queen, and they're just going to have to deal with it, because now I made the choice, and we're going to make the best of it. And now I think this kind of sets everything in motion in a negative way. If Daemon would have just chilled out for a whole night, and if Otto Hightower wasn't bitch snitching, maybe we wouldn't have this problem. But yeah, those are my thoughts on it.